Hey everyone, it's Suki from Post Recording, and I just wanted to add in this little tidbit at the beginning here because why not? So I actually went and got commissioned art, and I shared this a bit earlier on my Discord as well as the community tab in YouTube. But I just wanted to share it again because it's going to be the backdrop for the video, and because it is so amazing, I just wanted to give more exposure to the artist who made it. So I actually put in this commission a few weeks ago, and it took a couple weeks for the product to get finished. But basically, this artist worked very closely with me to ensure that I got the exact image that I wanted. I really like this artist's style, so I commissioned them personally using the artist and client's website, which worked fairly well. No hitches, no problems at all. Worked extremely well. We were able to communicate via that website just fine, and basically able to work together to make the image as great as it did. The artist worked very closely with me, like I said, constantly updating me every couple of days to tell me where they were at, and also asking and also implementing any feedback I had to make the image look even better than what we initially discussed. So as we went along, things ended up changing a bit, and then we ended up with the final product, which looks absolutely amazing. I really love it. So yeah, I just wanted to give more exposure to this artist in particular, and I will be sharing their Deviant art as well as their artists and clients page. But do make note that this artist is taking a few months off of doing commissions, so they won't be immediately available in case you wanted to commission them yourself. But when they do open up their commissions, I will definitely be getting more art for them in the future, and I will be sure to give some notice to them again whenever I get more art, because this art piece was absolutely amazing, and I am so glad that I got it done finally. I've been wanting to get some more art made of my characters, and it finally happened, and I am extremely satisfied. This was a very well worth the price, which wasn't even that bad, by the way. So yeah, just wanted to share that real quick and give some exposure to that artist. So thumbs up from me. Let's get on with the rest of the video. Okay, hello everyone, it is Suki, and we are going to be answering some comments that I've had stored up for way too long, but better late than never, I guess. But let's just jump into it, because I already know I'm going to take way too long answering some of these. So what do you think for target macros at the DPS spells? The error announcement is kind of annoying, and this was posted on one of my healer guides. I don't remember which one, probably the Astrologian one, but yeah, I think they're talking about target spells at the very least. And if you're unfamiliar with these spells, they're mostly for healers to use, and what they do is that you put them on your DPS spells as a healer, and basically you can target the tank, and these macros will make it so that your DPS spells will automatically target whatever your tank is targeting, hence target, and you don't ever have to actually drop target on the tank, so you can always basically keep target on the tank so that you're closely monitoring them, and you never have to actually untarget the tank using these macros, in theory. I don't prefer to use these just because I like to do things kind of manually, and sometimes you might not even want to target the same thing the tank is targeting anyway. So yeah, they're definitely, you could use them if you really want to, but I prefer not to, just because I like to have full control of what I'm doing, and macros in particular that alter things like that don't really give me full control. I personally don't actually use macros all that often, to be completely honest with you. I really just use macros for emotes. I use macros for crafting, and I use macros like notification macros, like I'm going to be raising this person with a little sound effect. I don't actually alter the way that my spells or abilities work with macros very much at all, just because I like to have full control over those types of things, and there's certain situations where macros would just go completely wrong. So yeah, I prefer not to use them. The error announcement is kind of annoying. I do think that if there is a line that you can put inside your macros that will get rid of the error announcement. I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that, but yeah, there might be something you can put into macros that gets rid of that. So yeah, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure just because I don't use macros that often, but yeah, I don't know, I have to look that up so that I know for myself in future reference. So yeah, let's move on. Alright, what's next? What do I have saved up here? Too much rambling about non-related stuff. Yeah, you're not really gonna like content on this channel if you don't like rambling, I'm afraid. I mean, that's just kind of how I am, unfortunately, so there's really not not much point in trying to change that. I feel like a lot of that has to stem from how I spent my time as a child, because when I was younger, I spent a lot of time just kind of hanging out inside the house rather than playing outside and all that. And a lot of that was reading and occasional video games. I used to play so much video games when I was younger that I had to have my parents limit me on how many games I could play. So instead of playing video games constantly, I was instead reading constantly, because that was the next best thing for me. And I really enjoyed reading just because of how much you had to use your imagination and creativity with imagining how stories would play out. Because reading, it's literally just words, right? That's really all opening a book is just words, and it's up to how great you can imagine those things being described to you that really makes the experience with reading. So growing up, I had a very vivid imagination, and I was very eager to create things, had a lot of creation in my mind, I guess. And so I like to write stories, and even now, like I always have a lot of ideas pop into my mind, whether it be about stories that I would like to write someday, or videos that I would like to make someday, which, trust me, there are quite a videos I would like to make, but I never actually get around to it because I'm just that lazy. And that's really just my problem, I guess, is that I'm really lazy about making a lot of stuff that's implanted into my mind. Like, I'll think of something that sounds really cool to make, but I just don't actually put the time in to actually make it, which is probably my biggest flaw, I would say. But yeah, that's the story of why I probably ramble too much, and that was in itself rambling. So take that as a good example, as the fact that if you don't like rambling, I'm afraid you're not gonna like the content. And that's no hard feelings to you. I imagine that people who want very short and concise information or entertainment or whatever, that's totally on them. It's not something I can provide, so there's really no point in me trying to change that or change myself in order to provide or attempt to provide that, I guess. I'm just putting it out there as it is. I ramble, there's really not much I'm going to really be able to do about that. It's just ingrained into who I am. So yeah, sorry about that. Okay, moving on. This is another old one, man. I should really when I choose to make these videos, I should probably do them when I set out to make them. But a nice way to know which one is your best DPS, besides paying attention to them or using a parse, is to take a look at their aggro gauge in the group UI. Tanks have that full, healers stay at 70 to 80%, so the best DPS is the person who has the biggest bar among the DPS, because they are doing more damage and getting more aggro. Now this is a very interesting situation. First off, that's not a very good way to determine your best DPS, because of the fact that your DPS should, I mean, quotation marks should, a lot of DPS that you find in the duty find probably won't, but they should be using their enmity reduction abilities, whether that be diversion, right? It's called diversion, right? Yes, diversion. It used to be called quelling strikes. I always get those confused. But yeah, diversion, which will take off 90% of your enmity for the next 30 seconds, which you should be using periodically so that you're not eating stuff in the face because your tank's trying to DPS and you're just not using it. You also have Shroud of Saints, or not Shroud of Saints, not called Shroud of Saints. Lucid Dreaming, yeah, that's right. Halves your enmity. That's only for casters and healers though. Bards and Machinists have Refresh and Tactician, which will both have their enmity, so they can basically cut their enmity into quarters. Usually you want to use Tactician there because Refresh has other implications. You use your Refresh to get back more MP to use foes, or if your healers are really struggling with MP in a certain fight, then you save it so you can give them more MP at that particular fight. Yeah, and then Dragoons have Elusive Jump, which is kind of annoying to use because it can usually knock you out of position if you're using it just kind of all willy-nilly. So preferably Dragoons tend not to use that unless it's advantageous for them to use or won't hinder their DPS. Monks have Purification, but that requires them to use up their chakra stacks, so they don't want to use that. Samurais have what is it, Open Eyes, which heals them and reduces some of their enmity, but again, they should be using that on Sagan. So yeah, there's a lot of, I feel like it's actually kind of weird that melee DPS need I feel like they should have put a have enmity on Invigorate, so that melee DPS could also have their enmity just like casters. But they said they're going to be trying to work out TP in Shadowbringers, so that's not even going to be an option going into Shadowbringers. But yeah, the reason why this is a terrible way to gauge how much DPS any DPS is doing is because they should be trying to keep their enmity as low as possible. Now, when I'm playing Samurai or when I'm playing Black Mage or anything that's supposed to be doing a lot of DPS, I want to make sure that I'm not going to rip off the tank and end up getting a tank buster to the face. So yeah, not a very good way to gauge that, unfortunately. So if you don't play on PC and you're not playing with someone who you can have who is playing on PC, who can tell you things like who's the highest DPS and all that, and really the best way is to just kind of pay attention to make sure what they're actually doing. I mean, I guess if you're playing casually with random people, it doesn't matter too much who you give the cards to. This is actually from the Astrologian guide, by the way. But yeah, definitely using just the enmity gauge to try and figure out who's doing the most DPS is not a very good idea, just because there's so many different factors that can go into why your enmity gauge is as high or as low as it is. There's so many different things that affect it, and DPS in general should be trying to keep their enmity gauge as low as possible. Also, Ninja has 2 enmity reduction thingies. They have Shadewalker and Smokescreen. I forgot about that. But yeah, not a good idea to use just enmity gauges to try and figure out who is doing the most DPS there. Okay, now we're gonna get into more of the like speculation stuff about Shadowbringers based on these comments, so that's gonna be fun. So expect to hear even more rambling about all the random stuff that just comes out of my mouth, that come from my mind. Hi Yasuki, do you have any speculations of the other new job? Many people think it is Dancer. Many people think it is Dancer. It might even be a healer. If you think it will be a healer, how would you like the healer to play? Now, I am actually subscribed to the belief that whatever the new job will be, it is going to be a healer. And I would not be opposed to the fact. In fact, I think it is very possible for Dancer to be reworked into a healer. Dancer, when it shows up in RPGs, usually it is it's usually like a support kind of job. You know, it works to sort of buff other party members. So I feel like if Dancer would be added to the game, it would be really kind of like a melee version of Bard, I would say, or a healer. And if it were to be like a melee version of Bard, I'd imagine that they'd have like several different dances, kind of like Bard works now. Like Bard has 3 different songs. Dancer could have 3 different dances that do different things to help increase damage or something to that effect, and they're just kind of weaving in between dances while doing their combos or whatever it is that their combat flow is based upon, because they could go several different ways with that. When I was thinking about how I would like Dancer to be implemented as a healer, that's a little bit more interesting. You could actually still have it like that. You know how Scholars, if you're using Celine, which it's not really that worth it, spoilers for when I actually do get my my Scholar guide out, Celine's really not really worth it, just because all Celine really gives you is like 3% attack speed for like 30 seconds, which adds up to be like half an attack, I think, like every minute, right? I don't know, my math's probably off there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but it's really not worth it. It's really only worth it if you can get Celine out while damage isn't happening, so like pre-pull or during an ultimate, cast that and then resummon Eos, and then just have Eos's abilities. But the reason why I went on that little tangent is because you could have like stuff like that that's just kind of built into your dances, right? Like if you were still going to do the sort of Bard thing where you just have a bunch of dances that you kind of passively press that last like, I don't know, 30 seconds, and then you're just constantly switching between the dances so that you always have one up that does something, you know, one that increases crit, one increases damage, attack speed, something like that, just general buffs. I mean, you could complain that kind of overlaps with what Astrologian's trying to do with their cards, but Astrologian, the thing about Astrologian is that it's completely random, whatever card you end up drawing. right? Whereas if you were to play Dancer, it would be less potent, I would imagine, in order to balance it out, but it would be constant. Like you'd always be able to have, you know, your dances up that could affect the party in whatever way. Going further with that, I suspected that dances would kind of be like monk forms, I guess. And the reasoning behind that is that you have like, I am very not in the know when it comes to choreography, so I'm not sure about the terminology there, but you'd have like the first step of your dance, right? And then from there you could go into like several different varieties of what you could do. You could have, you know, different steps for the second step, and that puts you into a new form. You're now in the second step of your dance, and then finally you finish off with your dance with your third step or your fourth step if they want to go that far. So that it works kind of similarly to Monk, where it's not like a strict combo system like with, say, Dragoon, where you're always following the same combo pattern over and over again. It's like Monk, where you kind of enter a new form, and then you have several options in that form to go to. And then you can enter the next form, and then there's several options in that form, except in this case it's different steps of the dance. I think that would be a really cool way to implement Dancer, whether or not it is a healer or not. The problem when it comes to healers, I feel, is that it's really hard not to retread a lot of the same stuff that's already happened before. Because you look at Astrologian, there isn't actually a whole lot that's unique to Astrologian that wasn't already in the game as White Mage or Scholar. In fact, they're able to even switch between using regens or shields just because you can choose to better synergize with a healer or with a White Mage or a Scholar. But what makes Astrologian stand apart is actually not their heals, it's their utility that they bring. You know, they have all those cards and a lot of those abilities that relate to their cards. So yeah, that's the tricky thing about bringing in a new healer, is that you have to bring something new with healing, because if you just have pure healing, then people don't really like it. Like White Mage is extremely strong as just a pure healer, has a lot of utility, has a lot of different ways to heal, but when you don't need all of that raw healing power, White Mage isn't that desirable anymore, because then you can bring in Astrologian that has all these utilities that White Mage doesn't have access to. So yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Is that if you try to bring in a new healer, then you're gonna, you know, it's kind of inevitable that you're gonna be retreading a lot of the same ground. Like you're gonna have the basic heal, you're gonna have the regen heal, you're gonna have the shield, you know, the shield, the absorb damage ability or spell. You know, you're gonna have the AoE heal. You need those things on every healer because they are just the basic tools that you need to heal. So it's very inevitable that you're gonna be retreading the same stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure what you could possibly bring as a new healer. I know another, and in my opinion, boring suggestion is to bring Geomancer in as the next healer. People have hinted that because Geomancers were a part of the Astrologian quest for Stormblood. I don't really want Geomancer. I don't know, it feels like it retreads a lot of the same ground that Conjurers and Astrologians already tread, which is again the problem I was just stating before, that bringing in a fourth healer would be a lot of retreaded ground. So yeah, that's a tough one. So yeah, I don't know. I've always wanted Dancer in the game, and I think that what I said before with the different forms and or different steps in the dances, you know, comboing off would be really nice. That really works more, I guess, for a DPS role than anything else, than a healer role, because it'd be kind of weird if you healed in different steps of a dance, right? Like you did your healing dance and it did this amount, and then it did like a shield or a regen depending on your dance. That'd be kind of cool, but it'd be really weird, and also you wouldn't be able to immediately get to what you would need, and also on top of that, it'd be really hard to balance that, I feel. So I don't know if what I said even made sense, but I said it anyway, so there you go. Yeah, other than Dancer, I don't really know what else, because they've kind of tackled, I think if anything else, if they weren't going to pick like a popular pick like Dancer, like a lot of people really want Dancer, then they should just kind of go out there and just kind of pull something kind of unique, like how they pulled Astrologian and Machinist for Heaven's Word. Like Stormblood job's pretty safe. Everybody wanted Red Mage, everybody wanted Samurai, so those were two very popular picks. So I feel like, yeah, it would be a very good opportunity for them to kind of pick another job kind of out of left field and just kind of make something unique. So yeah, there we go. That was the long-winded answer to that question, I guess. Okay, and this one's from the video where I listed my rankings of the jobs from least favorite. It's interesting what you said about Machinist going back to casting, when most people cited the casting as the reason they didn't like the class, or Bard, as they wanted free motion. I'm in that group personally, as Machinist is now like top 3 for me, but if it was like it was in Heavenwards, it'd be in the bottom 3. To each their own. I just found it interesting that you wanted the cast times back, as I didn't know many that did. Perhaps they could use another range DPS with that style, or keep one a Bard or Machinist as they are now and make the other caster again to fit both parties of preference, but who knows. Yes, that was my point actually, was that I feel like they could have kept Machinist as it was in Heavensward for that people that liked that particular style of play with the semi-cast bars, so that people who liked that style of play still had something to play, and then people who didn't like it how it was with range DPS being like semi-casters could then go to Bard. But and then I suggested that they do that again with Machinist because of how Machinist is now, and then they just kind of make Machinist a caster again. But the problem with that is that there are still going to be people who like Machinist as it is now. It's not a particularly popular job. Like, I'm pretty sure we can all kind of agree that Machinist is one of the least played jobs currently, but there are still people who like it. Like, no matter what, there's going to be someone who likes how something is. And when you change that, there are going to be people who like the changes and people who kind of want it how it was earlier. So that's kind of the problem with always changing your jobs so drastically, is that you're going to kind of leave behind some people who really liked a certain style moving forward. So I don't know. As it is now, I do think that Machinist does need polish. Like, if they do decide to keep the overheating mechanic, I do think that Machinist needs to be needs to feel a little bit better, because it doesn't feel that great to have to lose all your stuff. That's kind of my main gripe with it. It's not that you know, Machinist, there's so many buttons you need to press in this small window, which is an absolute nightmare, by the way, if you have really bad latency. But it's actually, I hate having to lose my stuff. I hate having to just explode my turret or lose Gauss barrel for 10 seconds, because I want to do the weird fun flippy handstands on my shooting guns and this really ridiculous stuff. Like, Machinist is actually one of the more visually appealing jobs in my opinion, but I can't get around the fact of having to constantly lose my stuff. It doesn't feel good to play for me personally. But I know a lot of people who actually have come out and said, yeah, I actually really like Machinist how it is. That really sucks, huh? Because if they do change Machinist going forward, then those people, they're going to be out of a job, because there's nothing quite like Machinist right now that you point to and be like, yeah, go play that instead. So yeah, that really sucks. So I'm curious to see how they're going to handle Machinist moving forward, because it is very in a very weird spot, I would say. But yeah, that's just kind of the thing when you're going through these, is that there's a lot of jobs that change over time. I know Warrior is another thing too, that people, myself included, really liked how it was in Heavensward, and it doesn't feel nearly the same as it did then. Still very powerful in terms of DPS, but certainly isn't the same as it was back in Heavensward. So that's really kind of a shame, just how things change moving forward, I guess. Okay, here's a funny one, really recent too. I think it's really weird that you play a girl character and you use a girl's name as a dude. Are you a closet homosexual? Well, first off, the name Suki, if that's the name you're referring to, the name Suki was given to me as a nickname from the friends I played with. So yeah, that's why I use that name in particular. But I came up with the name just because it was a reference to characters that I liked in a different game. So I'm referring to my first names of my characters. But yeah, let's answer this a little bit seriously, because there are people who genuinely wonder about this. But yeah, you can just play whatever you want when it comes to these games, role-playing games where you have character creation. You can usually play whatever you want, and that's kind of the thing about it, is that video games, and by their very nature, are supposed to give you a bit of sense of freedom. Like when you think of other mediums of entertainment, whether it be books or movies, TV shows, whatever, you're usually just experiencing, you're observing the story play out. But when you play video games, you have direct input on what happens. I mean, that's not to say that you have absolute freedom and control in a video game. No, video games are, by their very nature, illusions that are created by game developers to give you a sense of like adventure and stuff, or I guess it depends on the video game, but the sense of control. You directly are influencing whatever the character is, whether that be a character you make or a character that was written into the game, and that in turn affects the world inside of the video game. So what I'm trying to say is video games by their very nature have a sense of freedom that and control that you should have access to, I guess. I don't know if I explained that very well, but let's just move on. So when it comes to role-playing games, some people like to play something that they're not. That's really all it really comes down to. It's not very advanced, like an advanced ideology, I think. Does that even make sense? It's not a very complicated idea, I guess. Would be a better way of saying that. It's just that people want to play something that they're not, because you can be whatever you want when you play a video game. There's really nothing there. You don't really, I mean, I don't particularly judge people on what they play. That's how they want to play. People want to play whatever they want. They want to dress up however they want, and that's totally up to them. So yeah, that's really just it. It's just the sense of role playing. I know plenty of men who want to play as women, and plenty of women who want to play as men as well. I mean, it goes both ways. Just because that you don't think about it, it really does go both ways. And it's really just a sense of role playing. Maybe I want to role play and play as a female character because I'm not actually a female, and I want to play as a female character in this particular game and act like a female character would. Or maybe it just fits better with the backstory that you create with a character, because some people, when they roleplay, they like to create backstories for the characters, which, that's a part of role-playing as well. And it really just comes down to, you have that freedom, so might as well take advantage of it. I mean, also playing a female character, much easier on the eyes as well, especially if you're spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours playing whatever game you're playing. Much easier on the eyes. Same for the opposite. Women like to play as men characters too sometimes. Easier on the eyes. But I think the bigger thing is just that it's freedom. You can do whatever you want. I mean, it's the same reason why you wouldn't play a game and then create a character that looks exactly like you with your same name. If you do that, I'm sure there are probably some people who do that. If you do that, then that's fine. But if you're not doing that, then you are still engaging theoretically and creating a new character that you're role-playing as. So anytime you want to play a race that isn't human, that's also the same concept. We aren't elves, we aren't dwarves, we aren't orcs, but there are games that allow us to do that, and it's fun to just kind of put yourself into that role, even if it is really just in a video game. So yeah, very serious answer for that, because I know there are people who seriously just don't understand why other people like to do that. But yeah, that's the answer to that question. Very serious answer to that question, I would say. So yeah, that's that. There you go. That's the answer to that question. I don't know. I've seen actually a couple comments like this pop up every now and then. Not even just on my videos, but in other people's videos in general. And it's really just, it's a video game. You can do whatever you want. Have fun with it. Just and if someone chooses to enjoy their video game experience different from you, then that's their choice, and you should really just accept that video games are meant to be played in different ways. So someone might play it differently than you, and that's their choice, and that's how they have fun. I mean, it's a piece of entertainment, so people will do what is the most entertaining for them. That's really it. That's all there is to it. So yeah, let's move on. Okay, and back to more Shadowbringers speculation type stuff, and that is actually revolving around my theories about Y'shtola and Matoya and all that. So, this comment says, or Y'shtola just took up the name of Matoya, and there's actually several other comments revolving around the same thing. And if you don't remember, I speculated that Matoya might have been put into Y'shtola's body, and that Y'shtola hadn't been called back into her body yet, because we know that the Scions, at least the Archons, the main scions, not like Hori Boulder or anything like that, have been called. Basically everyone at this point. Spoilers, I guess, for Requiem of Heroes, or whatever it is. Requiem for Heroes, I believe is right, for part 1, is that everyone has been called except us, basically. Us, Kryl, and that's basically it. Just us and Kryl are left. We haven't been called yet. Everyone else has been called, and we don't know what's going on yet. And I speculated, because Urianger calls Y'shtola Matoya, Master Matoya, that Matoya might actually be in Y'shtola's body for some reason. And a lot of people have said that doesn't really make much sense. How could that happen? That Y'shtola is probably just taking up Matoya's name for some reason, which it's not actually. I don't mind that much, actually. It's kind of a nice story arc, I would say. Something happens to Matoya so that Y'shtola ends up taking up her mantle and eventually taking up her name as well. It's a really shame, because Y'shtola is a really beautiful name. I like that name. It just, I don't know, I really like that name. But yeah, I could actually see that happening, and it's definitely a lot more plausible a theory than what I came up with, even though I really do like my original theory that I came up with at like 3 a.m. in the morning, was that Matoya somehow, for some reason, is in Y'shtola's body, and Y'shtola is still somewhere off doing something else wherever she's been called to, spiritually or whatever. And looking at the trailers more closely, I've watched the trailer way too many times than I care to admit. I've also watched it in Japanese, by the way, to see if there's anything new there, which brings up the interesting tangent, by the way, is that it's lip synced specifically for English, even though it is a Japanese game, which I find very interesting. If you go watch any of the different languages, then it's lip synced only to English, but I got to hear good old Ai Kayano and Yuji Nakamura. Always great to hear from them. But yeah, going back and watching the trailer, she's actually standing and holding her staff in a similar position that Matoya does. Like, if you go visit Matoya in Matoya's cave, I think we actually just visited her not too long ago, actually, for the main story. But yeah, she holds her cane very much like that. But again, I guess a lot of people do. Like, Kani-sana holds her cane like that too, just kind of in the upright position, just kind of resting there, and it's very long cane. Also, because Matoya is much shorter, her cane is much shorter as well. She uses it kind of like a walking stick, I guess, as well. Whereas the cane in the trailer, it's not actually the same cane as Matoya's cane. It's actually much longer, and it also has like this sort of gem in it as well. But it seems to be made of like the same material that Matoya's cane is made out of. If you go and look at the cane Matoya has currently in the game, it looks like a very similar material that has been used for whatever cane that Y'shtola in the trailer is holding. So I don't know. That's just speculation. I think it would actually be really cool if that ended up being true, though. That if Matoya for some reason needs to inhabit Y'shtola's body, and Y'shtola is off doing her own thing somewhere else, wherever she's been called to, because we don't actually know everything. Like, this is still actually an extended teaser trailer, meaning that there is technically a full trailer that most likely will come out after part 2 of the of A Requiem for Heroes is available to us, so that we actually know everything that's going on. Then they'll release the trailer after that has happened, so that we don't get spoiled. But there is, in theory, a full trailer somewhere which will have more information. And in this trailer, we know the whereabouts of Urianger, Y'shtola, and Thancred, and I guess little Minfilia, but we don't know like what's going on with Alphino or Alice, so there's definitely more room there for there to be some more interesting stuff going on that we just haven't been shown yet. So yeah, very exciting to think about that. But yeah, and moving on forward into more Shadowbringers theories, I guess, is that where will we actually be going? Because I've theorized for a while that it'd be really cool if the Warrior of Light, because we are still technically the Warrior of Light, we become the Warrior of Darkness at the end of that trailer, but we are still technically a champion of the light right now. if the Warrior Light gets called at the very end of a Requiem for Heroes and then gets sent off somewhere else. The problem with those kind of stories, and another thing that's been thrown around which ties into this as well, is the possibility of time travel. Now, I think what leads people to speculate that is that at the very beginning of the trailer, you see the Warrior Light walking around. He's the archer from like 1.0, from the 1.0 trailers, and then he gets like a headache, and then all these flashes of main things that have happened in A Realm Reborn, Heaven's Word, and Stormblood. All these flashes really quickly, which would make sense. Like maybe people have suspected maybe it's like PTSD, or maybe if it's time travel, he's been sent back, and then all these flashes happen because he's remembering the things that he's done but hasn't actually done yet because he's in a different timeline. Another thing is that if he got called somewhere else, like he's experiencing like some sort of vision of what will happen if light is left unchecked, and then he loses his memories because of that, and then he's slowly kind of regaining them as the trailer goes on, because he gets attacked by a creature of light. Like people have pointed it out, but the two enemies that attack the Warrior of Light and also Thancred are bosses from, I think, the Lost City of Amdapor hard mode. I'm pretty sure. So they are creatures of light, I guess, because they use light attacks and stuff against you. So I feel like there is room for that possibility to be there, but the problem is that it's in an MMO. That's really hard to say. It's in an MMO. That's really hard to say, by the way. Try saying that 3 times fast. I'm not going to try because it's just going to sound really weird. But it's a story in an MMO, which means that there is some form of sort of immersion breaking when you try to put a story in an MMO, because while you're simultaneously trying to tell a good and compelling story, you also need to make it so that you can still explore the world at your own pace. Like, you can put the main story on the back burner and never touch it and just go do all the other stuff first. You can go level your crafters, or you can go do the raid stories instead. They aren't connected to each other because you can just kind of go off and do your own thing. Because of that, the immersion kind of suffers for a bit, but it is an MMO. It has to do that. So you get really weird moments where, like in Before the Fall Part 2, you're basically framed for the assassination of Nanamo, but you're still basically able to walk around Oldell like nothing's ever happened. Or you're getting all heated up and ready to fight Thornton or ready to fight Nidhogg, and you can just kind of go touch the little light over there and then just kind of get put back into the world and hold off that fight for later while you're sitting there waiting for the duty finder to find you more people to do the fight. And the problem with the time travel story, or a story like I was suggesting, that you get called somewhere else and you're experiencing something from someone else's perspective or a different world's perspective, is that it doesn't really mesh well with the freedoms of an MMO, I guess. Because if you remember back when we were with the Warriors of Darkness and what was it, Soul Surrender of Souls, or Soul Surrender, I think, patch 3.4, quite over 2 years ago, he talked about the Warrior of Darkness talked to us about how he was a Warrior of Light too, and then the light just kind of consumed his world basically, and light isn't all as benevolent as we're being led to believe. So it's possible that maybe we're being called to see what will happen if light is unchecked, which could work in a small segment, I guess. Is like you could have like just an extended cutscene or extended period of story where you're just kind of in that area, like in an instanced area or in a cutscene, and you get shown this stuff for a while. That could work, but having an entire story built around that probably wouldn't work as well. I just talked for way too long about that, but yeah. That's kind of the thing. As cool as it would be to see that theory of mine play out, like the Warrior of Light gets called Red at the end, and then we get shown all these things from this perspective of the Warrior of Darkness who we fought back in 3.4, and see how his world was basically destroyed by light. Because he's walking around like in kind of like a wasteland type area. Like it could just be one of the new zones. It looks like that. I mean, you go and look at the fringes or the peaks, and there's just a lot of dirt and rocks around, which isn't too much different from where he's walking around now. Just maybe one of the new zones is kind of looks like a desert wasteland type area. That's very possible. but it looks like it's a very kind of like destroyed looking kind of area that could have been because light completely consumed that world for some reason. Okay, and we're back. So like my computer just decided to just kind of randomly close out Audacity, so lost a couple minutes there of voice recording, but that's fine. I didn't say anything really important of note. I was just kind of closing out the video, but yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of end the video there. We only covered like a handful of comments, but somehow I managed to talk for way too long, as per usual, so that will probably somehow end up being like a half-an-hour video. But today's actually my birthday, so I actually do have plans for the night. So well, it's as close to my birthday as I can possibly get. It's March 1st when I'm recording this right now, and I was born on leap year, so you know, February 29th doesn't come this year, it comes next year. So I'm 23, I'll be 24 next year, and I will actually have a birthday then, so that'll be interesting. Maybe I'll do something special for that day, but that is literally a year away, so we'll think about that when the time comes. But hopefully you enjoyed watching, or I guess listening more likely, to this video. And yeah, I don't know, it was a lot of rambling and a lot of weird stuff coming out of my mouth, but yeah, some people really enjoy that, and to you guys, 2 thumbs up for you guys. I guess that's the type of content that's on this channel. If you don't like that one guy who said that I ramble too much, then unfortunately doesn't get any shorter than this. So yeah, I'm gonna go now, go hang out with my family and stuff like that. So hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in a different video, whatever that ends up being. Sayonara, bye bye.